Baruchim haboim, welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem on Daf Chof Beis Amud Beis at the new Mishnah. Our Mishnah discusses Balkari, but this time in regards to Tefillah. Says the Mishnah, Haya'oi made bat Tefillah v'nizkar shu Balkari. A person is in the middle of Shmona Esrei and he realizes that he's a Balkari. What should he do? Says the Mishnah, Lo yafsik ela yikatzer. He should not stop the Shmona Esrei, but rather he should shorten the Shmona Esrei by saying every bracha tchila v'soif. In other words, he should say Ata choynein la'odam das, Baruch Ata Hashem choynein hadas, Hashivenu avinu l'sarasecho, Baruch Ata Hashem haroitze b'seshuva, and so on. The Mishnah continues and speaks about the Balkari who now goes into the mikvah, into the waters the next morning. Yorad litbol, he went inside to be toivel. Im yochol la'alois uliskasois velikrois achelotehe hanetzachamo. If he's able to leave those waters and cover himself up to then say Kriya Shema Shel Shacharis right before the sun begins to rise, then ya'alev yiskase v'yikra. Then he should go out of the water, cover himself up, and say Kriya Shema Shel Shacharis. Because the Medaktikim are careful to say Kriya Shema exactly at the time just before the sun begins to rise. V'im lav, and if not, he won't have enough time to do so. Yiskase b'mayim v'yikra. He should cover himself up with the waters, because the water, so long as it's not waters that are clear water, then that can be considered to be a covering up, and therefore he can say Kriya Shema in the water itself. However, he cannot cover himself up with putrid waters that have a terrible stench. And similarly, where there is flax that were soaked in this water, which also causes the water to smell terribly. Now the Mishnah says, if there was urination, there's urine on the ground, he cannot say Kriya Shema there, but rather he has to put water in order to mevatel the urine. The kama yarchik man, how much does he have to distance himself from the urine? Uminat tzoya, or from excrement, from tzoya? Arba amos. He has to distance himself at least daled amos from the end of where the smell of the either tzoya or the meiraglayim are coming from. Now our Gemara brings what we saw in the Mishnah, but now expands and goes further. Tonu Rabbanan. Haya oimei bat tefilo v'nizkar shu balkari. Lo yafsik ela yikatzer. That's what we saw in the Mishnah. If he's in the middle of Shmona Esrei, he realizes Balkari, he should continue, but do so in a shortened version by saying each bracha tchila v'soif. Now the Brisa continues. Hayakoyer b'Torah. If he's in the middle of reading the Torah, v'nizkar shu Balkari. Now he realizes while reading the Torah for Kriyas HaTorah b'tzibur that he is now a Balkari, realizes eino mafsik. He doesn't stop, but he continues reading, but he does so quickly. Rabbi Meir Oimer Ein Balkari Rashoy Likrois Batorah Yoiser Megimo Psukim. Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that since the Kriyas HaTorah B'tzibur has a minimum of 3 psukim for each aliyah, therefore he should only read the minimum of 3 psukim. Tanya either. There's another brisa. Haya Oimer B'tfilo. If a person, not necessarily a Balkari, a person is in the middle of Shmona Esrei, V'ro tzoya kenegdo, and he sees tzoya opposite where he is davening. Mahalech lefonav ad sheyizurkenu la'acharav daled amos. What should he do? He should walk in front of it so that the tzoya is behind him, at least daled amos. Again, daled amos from where the smell completes itself, when the smell is yichle, the end of the smell. V'hatanya asks the Gemara, litzdadin. The Brisa says somewhere else that he should go litzdadin from the sides of where the tzoya is. Gemara says, lo kasha, hod efshar, hod lo efshar. When you're able to go in front, then you should go in front so that the tzoya is behind you. However, if you have no choice to go in front, because let's say you're standing at the edge of the river, so therefore the only thing you can do is go to the sides, then you should do that. Mahalech hayamispalo motzet tzoya b'mekoymoi. If he's davening and he finds tzoya in the place where he's davening, and it's a place where he should have checked because it's likely to have tsoya in that place, or, for example, he was walking in a place that was dirty, and therefore it was likely that maybe he stepped in a place that had tsoya. What should he do? What's the din? Even though he was chayte, his tefillah is a tefillah. That's what Rabbah says. Maskif le Rava. Rava asks on him, the sacrifices of the Rishonim is an abomination, implying that the tefillah shouldn't be good either for a chayte. So Rava then says, no, therefore, if he should have checked, it was a place that was likely to have tsoya, and he should have checked before he davened, and he didn't do so, he's called a chayte. And that person who's a chayte, therefore his tefillah is not a good tefillah, it's a to'eva. Again, of course, if a person is not expected to check because it's supposed to be a clean place, and all of a sudden he notices that there's tsoya, then b'di'eved, the tefillah is a good tefillah. Tanu Rabbanan. The Gemara brings a brisa. Haya oimed b'tefillah, a person is davening and he's in the middle of Shmona Esrei. Umayim shoysesin al birkov, and meiraglayim, urine is now going down his leg. Poisek ad sheyichlu hamayim v'choyzer mispalo. He should stop, wait till it finishes, and then continue to daven. Ask the Gemara, leheichan choyzer, from where does he continue? Gemara brings a machlokes. Rav Chizda, Rav Huna. Chad amar choyzer leroish. One says he goes back to the beginning of the Shmona Esrei. That means that the entire Shmona Esrei was not good because he was in a situation where he had to go to the bathroom and he davened anyways. V'chad amar lemokem sheposak, that he goes only to where he began to then urinate and he had to stop. Leima behokem miflagi. The more suggests that say the following is the machlokes. Mar sovar im sho kidei ligmo es kulo choyzer leroish. That one who says that he has to go to the beginning is because he was shog kidei ligmo es kulo. He waited enough time for the entire Shmona Esrei to elapse. Therefore, he has to go back to the very beginning. Umar sovar lemokem sheposak. Whereas the other one says that in such a situation where he waited he still goes back to the place where he was posek, where he left off. Says the Gemara, that can't be the machlokes. Omar Rav Ashi, Hai im sho im lo sho mi boile. If this was indeed the machlokes, then it should have stated this fact that he waited the entire time where you could have completed the Shmona Esrei. And since it doesn't say anything about that, it's mashma that we're talking about all situations, even when it's less time than that. And therefore the machlokes has to be explained differently. Elo, the kuli alma im sho kedei ligmo es kulo choyzer lerosh. Rather, everybody would agree if it was indeed enough of time that had elapsed that he would have finished all of the Shmona Esrei, then of course he would go back to the beginning. V'hasam b'deloi sho kemifli, but they're arguing about when he did not have so much time to elapse. Instead, the Mar Sovar Gavra dechuyahu ve'ein roi ve'ein tfilos tefila. Umar Sovar Gavra Chazyahu utfilos tefila. The machlokes is, do we say the person, it was not a person that was valid to daven, he was a dechuya, and therefore from the beginning, since he had to go to the bathroom and he davened anyways, therefore his Shmona Esrei was not a good Shmona Esrei to begin with, whereby he has to go back to the beginning? Or do we say no, that indeed this person was chazia, he was still fitting, and therefore only where he left off, because of he began urinating, does he then go back to and then proceed from then forward. Now the Gemara brings along the same lines of Brisa in regards to when a person does have to go to the bathroom before davening. Tanu Rabbanan, hanitzrach l'nekavov al yispalo. The Brisa begins by saying that a person who has to go to the bathroom, he shall not daven. V'im hispalel tfilosa to'eva. If he does daven, that tefillah is called an abomination. Omar Rav Zvid v'itema Rav Yehuda lo yishanu elo she'eno yachol lishois ba'atzmoi. We're only talking about a case where a person could not hold himself back. But if he was able to hold himself back, then that person's tefillah is not a to'eva, his tefillah is a good tefillah. Ask the Gemara, what's considered to be holding himself back? Ve'ad kama. How much time is he able to hold himself back? Rav Sheishes ad parsa. Until parsa. Parsa is 4 meals. Each meal is 18 minutes. So we're talking about a total of 72 minutes. If he could have held himself back from the beginning of his tefillah, Shmona Esrei, for 72 minutes, so that tefillah is a good tefillah. And by the way, even if he ends up having to go to the bathroom afterwards, but at that point in time, since he began the tefillah, being able to hold himself back, and nonetheless after the Shmona Esrei, he went to the bathroom, his tefillah is still a good tefillah. And there are those who teach this on the Brisa itself. When are we talking about that a person who davens such a tefillah when he had to go to the bathroom, his tefillah is not a good tefillah? Explains the Brisa. When he's not able to hold himself back. But if he could hold himself back, his tefillah is a good tefillah. V'ad kama, asked the Brisa. Rav Zvid ad parsa. Or this is actually the Gemara now speaking. And how much? Until a parsa. Until 72 minutes. Says the Gemara weiter. Omer Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmenim Rabbi Yonasan. Hanitzrach l'nekava. A person has to go to the bathroom. Hareza liyispalel. He should not daven. He should not daven Shmona Esrei. Even if he feels like he has to go to the bathroom, he should go to the bathroom before davening. Mishum shenemar, as it states, Hikon likras Elokecha Yisrael. Prepare to go towards Elokecha, O Israel. The Omar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmeni, Omar Rabbi Yonasan, he brings another drasha now on a different pasuk. My dichsiv. What is meant by the following pasuk? I'll read the pasuk in the totality. Shmor raglecha kasher telech el beis haElokim. Guard your legs when you go to the house of Elokim. V'korov lishmoya miteis haksilim zevach. And it's better to listen than bring offerings of the fools. Ki einam yoidim la'asos ra, because they don't know to do ra. And he explains. Shmor raglecha kasher telech el beis haElokim. Guard your legs when you go to the house of Elokim. Shmor atzmecha shelo techta. Guard yourself, your legs from yourself from doing the wrong thing, from doing chet. Ve'im tichte havei korban lefonai. And if you do sin, then bring a korban in front of me. Then the next words of the pasuk say v'karav lishmoya, and it's close, be close to listen. Omarove havei karav lishmoya divrei chachamim. Listen to the words of the sages. Sheim choitim mevim korban v'oisin tshuva. Because if they sin, they will then do tshuva and bring a korban. Mates haksilin, the pasuk goes on to say, it's better than the ksilin that bring a zevach, that bring a korban. Better than bring a korban of a fool. He explains, alti kiksilin, don't be like fools. Shechoitim umevim korban, who sin and bring a sacrifice, ve'in oisim tshuva, but they don't do tshuva. The rest of the pasuk says, ki einam yoidim la'asos ra, because they don't consider to do evil. Ihochi, if that's so, ask the Gemara, they don't consider to do evil. Tzadikim ninhu, then they are tzadikim. Elo alti kikasim shechoitim umevim korban ve'inam yoidim im ahalatoiva hemevim. Don't be like fools who do sins and they bring korbans and they don't know if their korbanos are korbanos because they did something wrong or they just bring a matana. Oh my HaKadosh Baruch Hu says about such people, Bein toiv l'ra einam mavchinim. They don't distinguish between good and bad. Vehem mevin korban lefonai, and they're bringing me an offering. Says the Gemara, to make a drasha on this pasuk regarding to our inyan of a person having to go to the bathroom in the middle of Shmona Esrei. Rav Ashi v'itemer of Chanina bar Papa Omar. Shmor nekavecha, when it says the words Shmor raglecha, kasher telech el beis Elokim, he's learning it means Shmor nekavecha, guard your openings. Shelo yafiach that is when he's in the middle of the Shmona Esrei lefonai. So therefore, here the pasuk is talking about Shmor Raglecha refers to Shmor Nikavecho. Kasher Telech El Beis Elokim doesn't refer to the Beis HaMikdash, but rather to your Beis HaTfilah. Says the Gemara, another topic altogether. Here we're talking about, can you wear tefillin in the Beis HaKisei? Tanu Rabbanon, the Gemara brings a brayso. Hanichnas the Beis HaKisei, a person who enters the Beis HaKisei, he should take off his tefillin at a distance of 4 amos, and then he should enter the Beis HaKisei. Omar Rav Acha bar Rav Huno, Omar Rav Sheshes. Lo shonu ela Beis HaKisei kavua. We're only talking about over here a Beis HaKisei kavua. They used to go to the bathrooms in the sadeh, in the fields, and a place where they would go to the bathroom that has tzoya on top of the ground, where they didn't dig a hole and put the tzoya inside, but rather was left on the surface of the ground, that's considered to be a Beis HaKisei kavua. So therefore, we're talking about a Beis HaKisei kavua that he should then take off his tefillin 4 amos away from that sadeh before he enters. Ava Beis HaKisei arai cholet v'nifne le'alter. But a Beis HaKisei arai which has not yet been used for tzoya, that person can walk into such a place, a Beis HaKisei, this sadeh, again, that doesn't have tzoya around, and then he can take off his tefillin inside that place, and then distance himself daled amos and be nifne, and then go to the bathroom. And when he leaves, marchik daled amos umenichan mivnei she'osa Beis HaKisei kavua. Then he has to distance himself daled amos from that sadeh, which is now considered to be a Beis HaKisei kavua, since it now has tzoya on the surface. Ask the Gemara, Iboilehu, Ma'u, sheikanes adam betfilin lebeis HaKisei kavua lahashti mayim. Unlike before, when he enters the Beis HaKisei kavua to make gedolim, here can he do so, the Gemara is asking, in order to make ketanim, lahashti mayim. So it's a machloikis. Ravina Shori, Rav Ada Bar Masna Oser. Also Shailu LeRava. They went and they asked Rava the same question. Can a person enter with his tefillin on in a Beis HaKisei kavua to be mashtin? Omar Lohu Oser. He said it's Oser, prohibited. Why? Chayshin and Shema yipone bohen, v'amelo Shema yafiach bohen. He says because we're concerned maybe he will then make gedolim, or maybe Shema Yafiach, he'll pass gas, and therefore that will be a bizoyon to the tefillin. In other words, when a person is in such a situation, in a Beis HaKisei kavua, he might do one or the other, even though he's only intending to then be yashtin. Tani idach, we have another brayso. Hanichnas the Beis HaKisei kavua, if a person does enter a Beis HaKisei kavua, choyleitz tefilo b'richuk dalet amos, he should then take off his tefillin at a distance of daled amos away, and he should put his tefillin in one of the holes of the wall that is in the inner part, that is just separating the Beis HaKisei, the sadeh, from the entrance. And when he leaves, and when he leaves, he should distance himself daled amos and then put on his tefillin and go out. These are the words of Rabbi of Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says he doesn't take them off at a daled amos distance, but rather he can go ahead and enter them with his hands. In other words, while he's holding them on his hands themselves. Rabbi Akiva says he can then put them in his beged and enter. The big dos architect asked the Gemara, he can just put it in his clothes. There'll be times when he'll forget about them and they'll fall. What Rabbi Akiva meant is they should be wrapped in his clothes while he's holding it in his hand. And he should put those tefillin, the Gemara explains, in the charin, in the holes in that wall that is at the entrance to the Beis HaKisei, the field. However, don't put them in the holes of the wall that is going on the outer part facing the Rishus Harabim. Because maybe passerbyers will take those tefillin and also be ma'or a chashad on the person who is in the Beis HaKisei. As follows, the Gemara brings the following Maisa. U'maisa betamid echod shehiniach tefilov becharin hasmuchin Rishus Harabim. He did put his tefillin in one of the holes of the wall that was facing the Rishus Harabim. Ubos zoyno achas v'natalton. And a zoyno came and she took those tefillin. Ubos lebeis hamedrash v'omro. She took those tefillin, she came to the Beis HaMedrash and she announced the following. Re'u ma nosen li ploini b'schori. Take a look. Who gave me this tefillin for his schar to be with him? Kivan sheshama oisa talmid kach ola l'rosh hagag v'nafal umeis. As a result of hearing what the Zona did, he took his life in his own hands and he fell from the roof and died. Ba'oisa shah, at that moment, hiskinu sheya oichzan bebigdo ubiyoda v'nichnas. They enacted that a person should only enter with the tefillin in his hands, like Rabbi Akiva learned, that it's wrapped in a baguette in his hands, and then enter the Soda Beis HaKisei. Gemara brings now a brayso, Tanu Rabbanon, in the order of events. Barishona, initially, Hayumanichin tefillin b'chorin hasmuchin, the Beis HaKisei. They would originally put the tefillin, like we said before, in the holes of the wall that is samuch, that is adjacent to the Beis HaKisei, in the inner wall. And then there were mice that used to then come and sometimes eat up at the tefillin. So then they enacted they should put them in the holes of the walls that are close on the outer part of the Rishus Harabim, where people are walking, and then the mice are then deterred from then bothering the tefillin. And subsequently, since Oivrei Drachim would then take the tefillin, and we saw this incident of this Zoyna, so then they made another takana. Then they were masaking that a person should enter the Beis HaKisei together with his tefillin wrapped in his garment, in his hands. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, halacha goylelon kemin sefer ve'oichzem b'yamino keneged libo. The halacha is that he should wrap the tefillin, he should then hold them in his hands so they're not being revealed, and then he should put them against his heart so that he'll be paying attention that the tefillin are there. So long as that the ritzua, one of the straps of those tefillin, are not sticking out from his hand a hand's breadth, a tefach, because they also have kedusha, the ritzuos. Rabbi Yaakov bar Acha, Rabbi Yizero, lo shanu ela sheyesh shehus bayom lelovshon. What we're talking about over here is that he has enough time to put them back on. Aval ein shehus bayom lelovshon, oise lehen kemin kis tefach umenichon. But if it's already at the latter part of the day where he will not be able to put on his tefillin again because it's going to be nightfall, so then the din is differently. Then he must put those tefillin in a kis, in a pouch, and he puts it in the pouch, which is a pouch of a tefach. If it's during the day, like we said, then he can then wrap them up and then conveniently then put them on afterwards. Hold them in his hands opposite his heart. However, it's at night. Then he should then put them in a kis, in a pouch, and then leave them in the pouch. In other words, they only gave the dispensation, the kula, to be able to wrap them up and hold on to them if it's during the day when a person is going to put on the tefillin again to make it more convenient. But if it's already at night and they're not going to put on the tefillin again, then they must put in a pouch for the next day. Omar Abaye, lo shonu ela b'klishu kalyon. That which we said has to be a pouch, a kis, that is a tefach, that's talking about where it's a pouch that is miyuchad for the tefillin itself. And therefore, if it's anything less than a tefach, then it's going to be nizbat, it will be bottle to the tefillin. It won't have any bearing, any chashivus of a mechitza for the tefillin. However, if it's a tefach, then it's enough to then cover the tefillin, and even if it's going to be its own kli. However, again, if it's going to be a kli that's not miyuchad for the tefillin, so then it could be smaller than a tefach. I'll bring you a proof that a kli less than a tefach is enough to protect something. We know that when there's a mace, then the entire oihel that the mace is in, it makes everything tamei. However, if you have pachim ketanim, they're going to be ceramic kelim, and inside is, let's say, food or something like that, and these pachim ketanim are not meyuchad for the food, even if they're less than a tefach, they'll protect the food from becoming tamei.